It's okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Drop in the Gloves. Thanks for joining us here today. I am not in Traverse
I
City,
did.
Tim.
Where
Did
are
you
you?
know that? I am in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, the city where I was raised, not born. I was born in Edmonton, but I'm staying with my parents. I am doing some events in Buffalo. This is the tail end of our trip, so I'm actually leaving right after this. But we've been here for 4 days now. It's been a good little trip. That's why we've been kind of a little chaotic with our releases here on Dropping the Gloves, but we'll get back to normal next week. But yeah, I'm in
Yeah,
St.
so we
Catharines
want to
here.
hear updates on the Sabres stuff and who you're, rubbing shoulders with and fans and all that. But we also want to hear updates on your parents' house and the kids and travel and all that chaos that I'm sure has been going on.
To keep it quick, the travel was great. We left on Tuesday in the big van. We zipped out of town and we packed lunches. I've learned. Do you know how much it costs to feed my family when we go to Jimmy John's? Take a ballpark guess. 8 kids, but only six of them really eat. Myself and
$100.
my wife. How much do you think it would cost if yeah, yeah, probably about $120 roughly, with everybody all in, with sandwiches and chips and drinks and such. And they're still hungry at the end of the day. So what I did, I said, we're leaving Tuesday. We went to Aldi on Monday, bread. We went to a meat place, got sandwich meat. The kids made all their sandwiches, and we made it fun. We said, pack your own lunch. It's great. It's great. So we did the trip. We only stopped twice for gas and potty breaks, and we got to my parents' house. It was great. And then the kids started getting sick. And then it's just been a domino effect, one after the other, after the other. We went to Niagara Falls the first day we were here. Lillian, she's like, I don't want to walk. I don't feel good. I'm like, we're here. We're going to see the falls. Let's go. She gets halfway. She's like, I can't do it. And so I said, I'll stay back with you. The rest of the kids went and saw the falls. And then she just starts barfing in public in Niagara Falls. I'm like, you poor kid. I'm so sorry. She was like a trooper. And she told me she was sick. And I was like, you can do it. You can do it. There's barfing everywhere in the parking lot, right in the middle of Niagara Falls. So we take her back and we, clean her up, hose her down. And then, so that's just been happening. The culmination was last night with Gabriella woke me up like at 1 in the morning. I got sick. Poor kid was running to the bathroom and tripped and fell, barfed on the floor, crawled a few more feet, barfed again on the floor, crawled a few more feet to the bathroom, then barfed in the bathroom sink. I have to clean it all up because Danielle's dealing with the baby, sleeping with the baby. You don't want to wake her up. So it was just a disaster. But we're leaving today. Hopefully everybody's good, sickness-wise, on the drive home. But it's always interesting, Tim. Aren't you excited for your when you get married and have
And
kids?
how,
It's gonna
how
be
are your
great.
parents dealing with all the chaos and everything? I'm sure they were excited when you got there, but they think they're ready for you to leave?
They're very sweet, but I think they're ready. Yeah, because we come in hot and when we leave hot, so I think they're ready. They have a hot tub, so the kids have been going in there. They have a cat, so the kids have been attacking the cat, and they have like when you're empty nesters, you have
Yeah.
a certain way of living. My mom wakes up at 10:30. She has a relaxing morning, and then she goes and gets her hair done, and she just like eases into life. My kids are up at 6:30, like scratching at her door like animals. Like, what's for breakfast? Come on, grandma, wake up, wake up, wake up. And then she's just like bleary eyed. Like, just it's a definite different lifestyle than what they've been living. They book cruises and go all over the world. And now my kids come in like, we're up at 6:30 and it's go. Like, it's 100% you're on. You cannot ease into the day. It's go time. So now they just woke her up at 7:30. You promised us breakfast, hash browns and bacon and pancakes. And so now they're making breakfast while I'm doing this. It's just funny. But they're ready for
Yeah,
us to leave. I'll say that.
good. And
And I'm
then
ready to
the
go home
last,
too.
the last
Had
question,
enough
yeah,
of the
before we get into the
Sabres.
hockey stuff is the Sabres event. How's that been? And who's been there and how's it gone?
It's been great. I've done 3 events. I did a signing. I went to the game on Tuesday, and last night we had Ryan Miller's catwalk event. So it's been fun. Just doing some charity stuff, seeing some old friends. Saw the game on Tuesday when they played Carolina. So I saw it's weird. You see Taylor Hall and Brent Burns, and you're chatting with them after. I'm like, the last time I saw you guys was the All Star game, and like you were lifting me up on your shoulders. Like it's bizarre, especially Taylor Hall, just because he was a kid like 10 years ago when that, or 8 years ago when that happened. So they were super nice. I talked to Bernsey for a while. Then I went and met all the Sabres. Tuck missed a wide open net. I've never met the guy before. And so we walk into the locker room with all my kids, and my kids are like, "Who's this? Who's this?" I'm like, "That's the guy who missed the empty net." And Tuck just started dying. He's like, "You brick!" Like, it was so funny. But we met all the guys, Thompson and Darlene and everybody. Everybody's super sweet. They just won 3-0. They were riding a high. So the Sabres are on a heater. They're playing great hockey. They lost last night, but I think they've won 5 in a row. James Reimer had won like 7 or 8 in a row. So yeah, it's a weird feeling in Buffalo where everybody's happy, but they're still terrible. And so they're caught in this no man's land where and they do it every year. Do we regroup for next year and just bring back the same guys and hopefully they can start this way? Or anyways, but it's been a good trip. We're happy to go back. I'm Thurman Thomas. I met last night. One of my favorite Buffalo Bills players ever. That was a lot of fun, and then all the alumni. I'm not going to go on and on, but it was a nice event. Ryan Miller, good event, raised some money for charity, and it was a lot of fun. So,
What have I been
anyways,
up
what
to?
have you
Nothing
been up to?
crazy. And that's actually a good transition of the Sabres because they're one of the talking points. We're going to talk about, the playoff picture is just about 100% clear at this point, and the Sabres will not be in the playoff for the 14th consecutive year, which is tying the New York Jets for the active longest drought in pro sports history. And there's only one active NHL player who has ever played a playoff game for the Sabres. You know who it is?
Um, well, like you would think it would be one of the guys. It's got to be
It
big
is,
big boy
yeah.
Tyler
Yeah,
Myers.
14 years. It's a long time. And we have, like shout out to Riley, who's a big Sens fan in our Patreon, who's seeing the Senators make the playoffs for the first time in like a decade. So, yeah, Sabres want this badly. And what do you do? It's going to be a big offseason for them or nothing. And maybe you just hope you come back next year and it looks a little bit different.
Well, if you're the GM, what do you do? Because you're Kevin Adams, and I met Kevin Adams, and I talked to him because he was my coach when I was with Buffalo, so I know him pretty well. And he's all happy. But what do you do if you're him? Because you have this tremendous finish to the season where, like last month, they were dead in the water. They were one of the worst teams in the league. In the last 10, they're 8-2 in their last 10. They're one of the hottest teams in the NHL. So what do you do, Tim? Do you just roll out the same group of players next year, or do you try to regroup? Like it's such a weird question because you're still at the end of the day when you look at the standings, bottom tier team, but you've been on this heater now, and so you get that little seed of hope. What would
Yeah,
you
well,
do?
I'll compare it to the Senators in that they were in a similar position for so long, and then they've had a lot of players come and go. Some have worked out, some haven't. But the one player that made a huge difference is the goalie, Linus Ullmark. And so, by the way,
Yeah.
where did he come from? Buffalo. Um, so I feel like that should be their priority. And I don't know their system. I thought Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen was going to take a step forward this year. He obviously didn't. James Reimer's 37 years old. I don't know what their organizational depth chart looks like, but it's also like not goalies don't come around very often. So I don't know how you can just go get a number one goalie in the market. But I feel like if they do, all of a sudden you might see a different team next year.
Well, and new coach Lindy Ruff coming in to resurrect this team, you figure he would want to play Luukkonen, the young 26-year-old goaltender that they just invested in for the next 5 years. He's under contract until 2029, $4.75 million. He said, no, not a chance. I'm playing James Reimer, the 37-year-old vet who's a UFA next year, but he's been playing great. He's got the lion's share of the starts the last month, and he's been playing fantastic. And Lindy Ruff said, done playing this guy. He's 11 years older. So he's just, there's no direction right now for this franchise. So to get a goalie, Tim, I don't know. You got one. And the coach doesn't even want to play him. So I don't know what the answer is, but they have good players. And we talked about this before. They have really good players. Like Paterka, JJ Paterka's fantastic. He's a great player. And Tuck is great. And Thompson's great. And Norris is okay. I think they would have maybe should have kept on Cousins, but their defense is great. So I don't want to spend too much time on the Sabres, but it's weird. They have good players. They have good potential, but they just can't take that next step. And it's funny you're talking about how Senators have turned it around. They're a wild card team. They're going to get waxed in the first round, maybe, potentially. But it's just, I don't know. Hey, they're in the dance, right, Tim?
Yeah, and just at this point, all the teams have clinched in the East except for Montreal, but I think it's really just a formality at this point. They have a 99% chance of making it. Columbus and the Rangers are still technically within reach, but they'd basically have to win out, and Montreal would have to lose out, and that's just not likely to happen. So, and Montreal still hasn't lost, by the way. The 6 in a row. They play the Senators tonight, so that could end up being a relatively big game. But just to put this in context, and someone laid this out on Twitter, they finished dead last in the entire NHL in 2022 with 55 points. That was the year they drafted Slokowski. Last year in the Atlantic Division, last in the Atlantic Division in 23 and 24, three of their top 4 point scorers were drafted in the time that Yzerman has been in Detroit. And they
I
got
love
their
that.
goalie off of waivers. There's some Buffalo comparison. And now the kid they just drafted last year, Demidov, first round pick, what is he, 18 years old, 19, is joining them for the playoffs, and he's white hot too. So it's like this can be done in a short period of time. And the whole thing with Yzerman is like, not to make this about the Red Wings like we always do, but it's like, oh, he inherited this team from Ken Holland. It's been 8 years. Like that argument doesn't really hold water anymore. But good for Montreal, and it'll be a lot of fun whoever they end up playing, most likely Washington.
And then you start to wonder, well, if I'm the Washington Capitals, and listen, this is a very pie in the sky thing, Tim, but do I have to be worried about this team? Because arguably they're one of the hottest teams in the NHL. You mentioned they've won 6 in a row, and everybody is seeming to be finding their stride. Gallagher's been having a great season. The first line of Caulfield, Suzuki, and Sokovsky are as good as it comes. Those guys have every ingredient you want on a first line. And all of a sudden, with the addition of Demidov, he rounds out that second line, which has been their weakness. It hasn't been a great second line for them. Newhook, Line, and Demidov, who can drive the play and can be a facilitator and get Line the puck when he wants to, and you got the burner and Newhook. This is a dangerous team. This is a team now, if I'm the Washington Capitals, you have 2 lines that can score, you have a solid third line, and you have a very good fourth line. So I'm worried. Obviously, the back end isn't where it should be, but you have these big bodies that can make life miserable for you. If you're a Washington Capitals player, you got the Savard, who was just a beast out there. You got Xhekaj, who is going to thrive in the playoffs. And then you have, obviously, Lane Hudson, who's a game changer, who can take over a series if he wants to. So don't look now. This isn't going to be a walkover 1 versus 8 like it usually is in the first round when you have the President's Trophy winner and you're just going to walk through the first round. It's like a tune-up for the second, third round. If I'm Ovi, if I'm the Capitals, I'm getting a little nervous because Demidov, he's the real deal, Tim. I honestly believe this kid's going to come in and just light it up, and it's going to be fun to watch.
John Scott just hates the Capitals. It continues the bashing on and
Well,
on. It's crazy. What's the
listen,
problem,
when it
man?
comes to picking, we'll do our picks maybe next week. Got to have an upset in there. Like, you have to. But, Tim, like, they have all the ingredients you want. Their goaltender's been playing great. Montembeault has been playing fantastic. And you're strong down the middle. Your centerman, Nick Suzuki, could be the most underrated player in the NHL. Like, he's fantastic. He's clutch. He's been playing great. He's strong in the middle. He's been having a great season. So I don't want to talk too much about the Canadiens and the Sabres and these teams in the Atlantic Division, but boy, it ain't a formality that they're just going to get rolled by the Capitals. It really isn't. And they might not even play the Capitals because they beat the Senators tonight, 1 point behind the Sens with 3 games left. They could be the first wild card, not the second. So there's still a lot of maneuvering here.
Yeah, and speaking of that, the Florida Panthers have now won 2 straight since we recorded a couple of days ago. So this whole are they tanking for the matchup thing, I think we can put to bed. So it most likely, I would say 100% is going to be Florida Tampa first round.
Yeah, I was never one who bought into that. I just think people who think that are silly conspiracy theorists, tin hat people. You're not going to lose on purpose. Just kidding. I thought they were taking. I thought with the guys they were leaving out of the roster, it's like, there's something to this. Where there's smoke, there's fire. But yeah, you got your wish. Are you happy now with the first round matchups in the East?
Oh yeah. This is what I wanted, especially in the Atlantic. But yeah, this would be a lot of fun. And let's talk about the West now. So only 5 teams have officially formally clinched, and you have 4 teams playing for the final 3 spots. So the Oilers, Blues, Wild, and Flames are all still in the race, and none of these teams have been eliminated yet. It's the Flames that are going to be the odd man out, but it's close enough to be interesting. The Blues have lost now 2 in a row after winning 12. And the Flames are within 5 points with 2 games in hand. So this could be something that, the Blues could have a momentous collapse and the Flames would just keep winning. But regardless, and then there's a Wild right there who's tied with the Blues, so they have fewer games. So it's all kind of close, but I think we can assume that the teams that are in there now are going to stick there. I think that's a fair assumption.
Yeah, and I think it's shaken out exactly how we thought it would shake it out. In the East, Columbus was a fun story throughout the season, but we knew based on what they did at the deadline, they were going to fall back, and that's what's happened there. And then in the West, the Calgary Flames, it was a fun story. We had Lomberg on the show. They've been playing for the what's on the front, not the back. Everybody's pulling the rope. All the analogies you want to throw out there. They didn't add, and so that's where they are. The St. Louis Blues, they're a better team, and they pulled off a little bit, and then Minnesota Wild have finally found their footing after losing a lot in a row. They were in free fall because not a month ago they were one of the top teams in the Central, and then they just collapsed. Kaprizov was out, and it was just how do we manage this situation? And they finally started to find their footing. But yeah, it's going to be St. Louis, it's Minnesota, and now the question to you, Tim, if you're one of those two teams. You have 2 games left if you're the Blues, 3 if you're the Wild. Who would you rather play? The soon-to-be, Western Conference champion Winnipeg Jets or the Stanley Cup champions from 2 years ago, Vegas Golden Knights? Who would you rather play in the first round?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably, and they're both going to be great teams. I don't see either of these being potential upsets really, but I think I'd rather play Winnipeg just for the sole fact of how bad Hellebuck was in the playoffs. So I think you have to hope that you're going to get a similar version of that. He's probably not going to allow 5-6 goals a game again, but if he's allowing 3 or 4, you feel like you have a solid chance of beating them. And they didn't do a ton of the deadline either. So I feel like maybe them, but yeah, I don't see either of those teams being upsets.
Gosh, if I'm the Jets, I really, really, really want to play the Minnesota Wild. Like, I don't want to line up against the St. Louis Blues. I feel like St. Louis has the ingredients to upset a team, especially with Psycho between the pipes, Jordan Binnington, and just the vets that they have there. They have the potential to upset some teams. Whereas Minnesota, listen, I'm a big Minnesota guy, and so are you, Tim. We talk to players on that team all the time. I don't think they have it just yet. I think they're easier to shut down than the St. Louis Blues are. You just cover Kaprizov, and I think you have that team wrapped up.
Well, there's a huge game tonight. The Calgary Flames are playing the Minnesota Wild, so this is going to be, pretty big implications for them. And Minnesota needs at least 1 point out of that. And it's worth mentioning that just a couple of days ago, after missing for, several weeks to a month, Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek both returned to the lineup. And what do? They combined for 6 goals, 17 shots, like it's crazy. Kaprizov scored the OT winner. So you can't really understate how big of returns those additions were to the team. And maybe they're coming in at just the right time. And maybe they'll surprise some people. But again, that first round matchup is not one that you can really get too excited about.
Listen,
so the playoffs start today. It's going to be Winnipeg and Minnesota, Dallas and Colorado. That's the big one. That's probably the best matchup in either conference. Vegas and St. Louis. And then once again, I think fourth year in a row, Edmonton and the LA Kings. Which is just, what do you do there? How do you get excited for that?
Well, if you're an LA Kings fan, you don't, because you know the outcome. You've seen this play before. Like, it's happened even 3 years ago when they should have won. I think they were up 3-2, and everybody was upset. McDavid, blow this team up. They came back and win, and in the last 2 years, it's been all Edmonton. But yeah, Dallas, Colorado. That'll be must-watch hockey. That'll be fun. It's just 2 dynamic teams. I don't know if Miro Heiskanen is going to be back for that series. Tim, you're a Dallas insider. You should know. But that'll be, for me, the linchpin of this series. If he's back, they'll have a good chance of winning. If he's not, I'm going to give it to Colorado.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. He was expected to be back for the playoffs, but they said he could miss the whole first round. So it's one of those things where they're kind of keeping that information tight right now. So we'll see. In that, you're right. That is a big point, especially when you have Makar on the other side. You need to have an answer for that. So, but man, that'll be so fun. Not just the talent, but like the whole Rantanen aspect of this too would just be must-watch hockey.
Yeah, it'll be fun. The East has some great matchups too, but I think, like you said, the best 1B team matchup will be Dallas, Colorado. Like, both those teams, I would not be surprised if they win the Stanley Cup. That's how good they are. And they loaded up at the deadline too. That's the fun part. Like, they both are in for the Stanley Cup this year.
So speaking of Colorado, Gabe Landeskog has been loaned down to the AHL to the Colorado Eagles on a conditioning assignment. Now, he has not played a game since winning the Stanley Cup in 2022. And now he's going to be getting some rushes in. So it's good for him that he's going to come back with his team. And you think about the moves they made, going back to getting a goaltender in the middle of the season to the deadline. Charlie Coyle scored a shootout winner the other night. Like, they're looking really good at the right time. Now they're getting their captain and top 4 player back in the whole roster. 3 now that Rantanen's gone. So this is the team that's going to pick up a lot of momentum. And you hopefully that Landeskog's going to be part of it.
Well, it's what they've been missing, right? Because when they won their Stanley Cup, they were so strong. They had such a good top 2 lines. And when they lose him, they lose Nazem Kadri. They've been missing that piece to round out their top 2 lines. You added Brock Nelson, I know that. You mentioned you added Charlie Coyle. He will slide right into those top 2 lines. And if he's going, Tim, If he's on, like he usually is, which I assume he will be, guys like that don't come back just to be spectators. Like he'll be a different maker. Man, like it's just crazy how good this team could be, and they lose arguably their best goal scorer mid-season, and they're better than what they were. So, and the GM has done a great job maneuvering and trying to bring players in. Casey Middlestead, that didn't work. Okay, let's shift. Let's try to do something else. Let's bring in Charlie Coyle and Brock Nelson, and it's worked. Everything's worked now. This team is primed for another Stanley Cup run.
All right, let's do some quick hits here. Did you see the fight between Duhaime and Chatfield last night, where it was a clear response for Chatfield taking down what's his name? Did you see that fight? What'd you think?
I did. It was an energetic fight. Duhaime is a little bit smaller than Chatfield, so it was a good scrap. I liked it. It wasn't a barn burner, great fight that's going to go down in history, but it was a good response to the dirty play by Chat. I didn't get a chance to see him when I was in Buffalo. I had my roll of quarters in my pocket for when I saw him. I was going to grab him and just sucker bomb him for what he did. That disgusting display on ice UFC action. But no, it still boggles my mind he didn't get suspended. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy he didn't get suspended.
Yeah.
Good message, George.
Rod the Bod had spoken to the media about like, hey, this is blown way out of proportion. This happens every night. Like it's the media, this and that. It's like, no, it doesn't. And you saw the way that Duhaime handled that, exactly how the players feel about that situation. So I think he's a little out of touch there, or just protecting his guys.
Great response. I like that. That's the way it should be handled. If the NHL is not going to step in, and that's the issue. They say we're going to protect the players. We're going to take care of this to get rid of this aspect of players, fighters, and then they don't do anything. So you have to take care of it on the ice, the old school way. I wish he would have bombed him, but he did not much damage there. But it looked great. Good for Duhaime.
Friend of the show, Adam Van Tillies, has scored his 25th goal the other night. So he's the first guy from his draft class, which includes Leo Carlsson and Connor Bedard, to hit 25 goals in a season. Pretty cool.
Yeah, good player, great player. Yeah, that Columbus team, I don't know, we're not going to talk about that. They're a good team.
Yeah. The last one here, and this is kind of an interesting one. So the Vancouver Canucks were eliminated the other day, and they're kind of having those exit interviews and the press stuff, and the big story coming out of this, and including guys looking at international tournaments and stuff. But UFA Brock Besser said he's quote unquote unlikely to re-sign with the Canucks, and if you read the full conversation, it kind of sounds like it's out of his. It's not his decision, right? It's out of his control. When he's kind of like, yeah, basically, it doesn't look like I'm likely to come back. So you can tell he wants to be there, but either the money's not there or he's reading the tea leaves about the direction the team is headed and he's not happy with it. But this is a big change, and he'll be a big, sought after piece in the free agency market.
Which makes perfect sense, because if you're the GM of the Vancouver Canucks, you don't trade him at the deadline and then you just let him walk for free. It's very smart management by the Vancouver Canucks, especially for a team that's out of the playoffs. It's just like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? This guy would have gotten you a ton on the open market if you were to just trade him. But they just sit on their hands. Maybe the asking price was way too high, like they talked about. But he could have gotten a low first round him. He could have got a prospect. He could have got a couple second rounders. And now he walks for nothing. And what you're left just sitting there with your thing in your hands. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know. He'll go to Minnesota. You heard it here first. He will sign with the Wild. It's a perfect fit. He'll play great with Kaprizov. It'll be a fantastic fit. Marco Rossi. He's a Minnesota guy. I bet you he'll get 7 years, $7 million. That'd be perfect fit for him. $50 million, 7 years. Boom, lock it in. Brock Besser, Minnesota Wild. The Vancouver Canucks botched this situation, just like they botched every situation in the last 3-4 years. JT Miller, Brock Besser, Pettersson, everything across the board, everything they touch just turns to ash. They just, for whatever reason, it's a great town. They just can't get out of their own way.
Yeah. Well, that's all I had today, John. And I know you're driving home today. Anything else or any closing thoughts?
No, we'll be back to normal next week. I apologize for the quality. I'm getting booted off the Wi-Fi here at my parents' house. So I got to maybe help them pay their bills. But it's been thank you for being patient. I met a lot of fans too when I was in Buffalo. A lot of guys watching the show. It's been a lot of fun to get out there and just mingle with the little people. Tim, he's a common man, this and that. But it's been great. We'll be back to Tuesday. I'll get the interviews going. It was funny. I do these events with these players, and I'm having players come up to me now saying, hey, you don't want me on the show? Why don't you ask me to be on your show? I'm like, yeah, sure. Come on my show. I don't care. So I will get some more interviews going. It's just been a weird 2 weeks. It's been strange. You get that, Tim, when you hang around with the NHL guys or the people in North Carolina saying, "Why don't you ask me to be on your show?"
Well, I don't get NHL players, but I do have people trying to get. He's like, hey, you know what? I would be a good guest, and here's my story. And I'm like, hey, that's nice, man. Good for you, but you're not coming on the show. It's weird how
Isn't it funny?
I don't think it's entitlement. It's more delusional. It's just more like,
Yeah,
hey, I broke my leg in high school playing hockey, and I went through the surgery, and then now I'm a ref. I think I have a cool story. I'm like, I'm sure that's a nice story to tell your friends. You're not coming on the show with that. This is not what we do here.
it is
So,
funny how people think it. They would love this. It'd be great. And then we got Happy Gilmore 2 reached out to us. They want us to do like an interview with some of the people, so that'll be fun. Maybe Adam Sandler. Let's get him.
well, yeah, I responded to her and
Let's
said,
shoot
hey,
for the
yeah, that
top.
sounds cool. What's the list of? And she said she'll get back to us with a list of people that are available. So that'll be cool.
Yeah, we're not. I don't. I want Adam Sandler or I want Shooter McGavin. That's it. I don't want this low tier like B list actor coming on. So we're shooting for the stars here. But anyways, that's it. Any big plans for the weekend, Tim?
No, Julia is out of town on
Ooh.
Sunday for the week, and then she's a video
Oh,
shoot that's finishing down in Savannah. So I'm taking the dog next weekend and meeting her in Savannah for a nice long weekend. So I'll have to hit you up next
that
week for
sounds
some recommendations.
scandalous. That sounds a little scandalous.
Yeah, this is why there's so much stuff behind me on the couch. All her clothes for packing are laid out here for a client video shoot down in Georgia.
Just the idea of a video shoot is a little unnerving to me. I don't know if I like that,
You don't have
but
to
I'll
like
just
that,
leave it
John.
there.
It's okay.
I don't. But yeah, have a good trip. I know Savannah well. I was there 2 weeks ago. Beautiful city. Everybody else, we'll talk to you next week. Have a good weekend. Cheers.